Adike, the wicked food seller. Adike woke up that morning feeling vibrant and energetic. She picked up her wooden mirror and stared at her reflection, but what she saw made her cringe. She quickly put down the mirror and carried her freshly made Indomie to the village market for sale as usual. Before she arrived there, hungry customers were already lined up. Mothers were waiting to buy the Indomie for their children who were going to school. Without money, Adike's Indomie was second to none. It had a taste that drew people like magic, and the aroma could be perceived from miles away. Her Indomie was like breakfast for the whole village, and anyone who went a day without her Indomie felt unfulfilled. However, behind the tasty meal, irresistible aroma that had people in awe lay a dark web waiting to be uncovered. Adike's Indomie wasn't ordinary, it was mixed with a special ingredient. Unknown to the villagers who licked their plates without thinking twice, Adike usually prepared her Indomie at night when everyone was asleep. It was a perfect time for her to perform her rituals without anyone suspecting or seeing her. As she stirred the Indomie on the fire, she would add worms she had gotten from dead bodies and animals. These worms, laced with her dark magic, made her Indomie so tasty and irresistible. However, they were very poisonous. Each time a customer swallowed the worm, it would start to eat their intestines, draining their strength and vitality. The worms didn't kill them but made them grow older and very weak. Little children who ate the Indomie grew faster than their age, and they became more rebellious to their parents and obedient only to Adike. Each time a child misbehaved, their parents would threaten them that they would report them to Adike, and immediately the children would call themselves to order. But parents didn't even question why their children respected only Adike. Adike continued to sell her Indomie to the villagers and established several other businesses in the village. In no time, she became a beloved figure in the community. The more wealth she acquired, the weaker the villagers became. But no one suspected a thing. Instead, they queued for her any day she failed to come to the village to sell her Indomie. Things continued this way until a strong widow suspected that something was wrong. Things continued this way until a strong widow suspected that something wrong was going on in the village. Bamidele was a very hardworking woman, and ever since her husband left her in this cruel world, she had been the father and mother to her 3 children. Bamidele was very principled and didn't eat outside like others. In fact, she warned her children never to buy food outside, encouraging them to cherish homemade meals. Bamidele took it upon herself to discover why the villagers were suddenly becoming weak. Instead of going to the farm, they would sit at Adike's shop, eating her Indomie from morning till night. She suspected the problem would definitely be from Adike's Indomie and decided to conduct an investigation. The next day, she went straight to Adike's shop to buy a plate of Indomie. But to her greatest surprise, Adike refused to sell to her. "I said it has finished. What is it that you don't understand? This one is specially reserved for my top customers," Adike shouted at her. Bamidele left without saying a word. She already knew that Adike sensed something strange in her. That's why she refused to sell to her. But Bamidele was determined to discover the truth. Months later, as Adike continued to plague the village with her evil Indomie, Bamidele decided it was time to set things right. That day, she waited until Adike was done selling and followed her carefully to her house. Bamidele hid by the bush until it was 12 midnight, the perfect time when witches conduct their rituals. She had learned spiritual works from her late husband, who was the village herbalist at the time, so she was already familiar with the activities of the witches. At exactly 12 midnight, she saw Adike sneaking out of her hut, holding a black nylon. She waited until Adike had gone a distance away before following her. She followed her into a thick forest where dead human bodies and animals were dumped. Bamidele watched in shock as Adike scooped worms into her black nylon. The sight was disgusting, as some of the worms were already decayed and smelling. After collecting enough worms, Adike headed back to her hut. Unknown to her that Bamidele had been watching her, Bamidele followed Adike back to her hut that night to find out exactly what she wanted to do with the worms. She didn't want to believe that Adike used the worms to cook her Indomie. Immediately she got to her hut, Bamidele hid at the window, watching Adike through a small opening. Adike brought out the worms and, as usual, she poured them into a small calabash and sprinkled her magic oil on them to remove the awful smell. After that, she poured them into the Indomie on the fire and stirred it thoroughly. Bamidele couldn't believe what she had just seen. Her stomach ached with disgust. She held herself back, careful not to make a sound. She immediately rushed back home that night. She couldn't sleep as the sight she had seen terrified her. She thought of what to do that night to free the villagers from the spell Adike had cast on them. She knew it would be very difficult to expose her because the villagers were already under her bondage. The next day, Bamidele went to visit her late husband's friend, Oba Adebayo. Oba Adebayo was a very wise man and didn't eat outside like his wife and children. He had warned them severally to stop patronizing Adike after he had a terrible dream about her, but they refused. "Welcome, my child. What brings you here this morning?" Oba Adebayo said, handing Bamidele a chair to sit. "Oba Adebayo, my heart is very heavy. We are in trouble in this village. Our village is in big trouble," said the woman. "What is the problem? Speak to me so that we understand what you are saying. How is the village in trouble?" Oba Adebayo asked. Bamidele narrated everything to him, and he was shocked and terrified as well. "No wonder I had a dream about her. I should have known that this woman is very evil. We must act fast because as we speak, the king is about to make her his third wife. And if that happens, we are finished," Bamidele said. "But why is she doing all this? What is her game?" Oba Adebayo asked. "My dear, I don't know. That is why we must expose her quickly." That night, Oba Adebayo gathered his trusted friends in the community and took them to Adike's house. That night, they all saw with their own eyes what Adike had been feeding the village. He left that night and planned to expose her the next morning. At the first cockcrow, Bamidele and 3 other men in the village headed straight to Adike's shop. Before they got there, customers were already lined up waiting to buy the Indomie. Bamidele screamed at them, "Do you people know what you are eating?" All eyes turned to her, and Adike's heart jumped into her mouth. She immediately knew that her secret was out. She quickly closed her pot and tried to run out, but some men caught her and tied her with a rope. Bamidele narrated everything to the villagers, and one by one, the spell in their eyes began to fall off. Some angry men and women rushed into the bush to get sticks to beat up Adike, but Bamidele stopped them. She approached Adike and poured her ritual oil on her to make her confess, but to everyone's surprise, Adike transformed into an old woman. The villagers gasped in fear and stepped back from her. "She's a witch!" one of them shouted in the crowd. Suddenly, Adike started laughing. I'm not done with all of you. You all must pay for what you did to my family, for making me suffer at a young age. I will make you all suffer. I will not stop until I wipe out this entire community, she said. It happened a very long time ago. Adike's father, Adiremi, was accused of sleeping with the queen, his brother's wife. He was framed by his four friends who didn't want him to become the next king. Adiremi was a very rich man and the next in line after his brother, Obalade. He was upright and hated evil. He wasted no time in exposing evildoers in the village, and because of that, he was hated by the evil men in the village. After he was accused of sleeping with his brother's wife, the queen, he was stripped naked and set ablaze. Adike watched helplessly as her innocent father screamed for help, but no one stretched their hands to help him. Even her mother, Modupe, laughed heartily as she watched her husband burn to ashes. Obalade had thrown his wife, Modupe, out of the house after he caught her sleeping with a palm wine tapper at the farm. As her father gave his last scream, Adike slipped out of the crowd and ran to another village. And since then, she had been planning to avenge her father's death. Before coming back to her hometown, she visited a powerful herbalist who told her everything she needed to do to make herself younger and energetic in order to carry out her plan. The worms she added in her Indomie made the villagers weaker and made her stronger. She also wanted to become the next queen so that she could kill the king and take over the kingdom. The villagers were shocked to hear her story. Their anger died down. They stood frozen, unable to say anything. Bamidele was moved to pity and knelt before Adike. But there are other ways to go about this. I know your father was unjustly murdered, but you went too far, she said. But Adike said nothing. When the information got to the king, he felt bad for Adike and summoned her. He begged Adike for forgiveness and asked her to revoke the evil she brought upon the community. She hardened her heart at first, but later she forgave them. She was later moved into the palace and rewarded the title of the second in command in the village. Adike later found peace in forgiveness and died 5 months later. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something meaningful from this story. Stay blessed.